What kind of gun is it?
It's a Glock 19, it's Gen 3. It's all legal. I have all the paperwork in my wallet.
Okay. What's your name?
Less 5. You should be less
Austin Green.
Actually 3.
I got it.
All right. Hang tight, Austin. Okay. Are you hurt or anything?
In the early morning hours of May 8th, 2021, a frantic 911 call pierced the stillness of a quiet residential street.
154 Central, we have a GSW to the head. He's breathing, not conscious.
Is he going to be in front of 6 John Driver?
Turn around. On your knees.
Get your car down here.
Why couldn't you just leave well enough alone, dude?
Turn him down.
She made a statement when we were putting her in the car that he hit her.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me too, that he was smashing on her windows, beating on his girl, so he shot.
The caller was nearly incoherent, breathless and shaking, uttering fragments of horror about a man lying in the street, blood seeping from his skull. Moments later, police would arrive to a scene straight out of a psychological thriller. A young man, 26-year-old Michael Tripp, was found dying in the road, the apparent victim of a gunshot to the head. But as officers began their investigation, the story they would uncover would spiral into something far more twisted than a simple act of violence. This is not just a story about a shooting. It's a story about obsession, betrayal, and a love triangle so volatile that it exploded into murder. What began as a romantic falling out soon escalated into a deadly trap, one that might have been carefully planned by someone the victim trusted most. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The first officers on the scene encountered Austin Green, standing just feet away from the bloodied body.
47, tell him see him stepping up.
Turn around. You lift your fingers and touch your head. Get down on your knees.
Okay, we've got him
Lay down
in
your
rough.
knees.
Already one.
Hands out to your sides. Palms up.
Is he going to be in front of 6 John Driver?
Turn around. On your knees. Lay down on your stomach.
Sorry, say that again.
Hands out to your side. Don't move.
He reportedly said just one thing. I told him to leave. He wouldn't stop. With him was Riley Young, the only person who could explain what led to this fatal confrontation. Or so it seemed. What followed was a painstaking investigation that would stretch into hours of interrogation, surveillance footage, digital forensics, and a deep dive into the private lives of 3 people whose relationships with one another blurred the line between love and manipulation. At the heart of the storm stood Riley, a young mother and girlfriend torn between 2 men. Or was she the one pulling the strings all along? Riley and Austin insisted it was self-defense, that Michael was the aggressor.
I loved him to death. I did not mean to do it. I just wanted him to stop. He wouldn't stop. I was just trying to go home and go to bed so I could get my kids. He just kept going. He kept screaming. He just wouldn't stop, man. He was like an animal just got released out of a cage, and he was just going for everybody's head.
That he had become unhinged, stalking Riley, harassing her, threatening to burn down Austin's trailer with the children inside. That he punched both of them just moments before the gunshot rang out.
We all jumped because he was breaking windows at 2:30 in the morning, and he's standing there, he was yelling and screaming.
What's he saying?
You're gonna talk to me or I'm gonna catch this house on fire. And Austin walked outside and he's always got his gun on his hip.
She made a statement when we were putting her in the car that he hit her.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me too, that he was smashing on her windows, beating on his girl, so he shot him.
Was this shooting the tragic climax of a toxic emotional web, or something far more premeditated? Consider this. Riley had only broken up with Austin 2 weeks prior. She quickly moved on to Michael, Austin's best friend.
I just want to get all the relationship figured out, and then we can go into everything that happened. So you guys broke up 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Did you know Michael before, or did you actually meet?
He was Austin's best friend.
Okay. So after, were you guys talking pre-breakup, or was it after breakup that the relationship started? Were you just talking to, hooking up with, dating?
Pretty much hooking up with
Okay.
post a few pictures of us on Facebook, and then I was like,
So talking, or?
yeah,
Pretty,
something
more
like
than hooking
that.
out, not quite
Yeah.
dating relationship.
Yeah.
Then just days before the shooting, she showed signs of wanting to reconcile with Austin. Texts, calls, and in-person conversations hinted at mixed messages. Jealousy was simmering. So was rage. And somewhere between the lies, the truth slipped. During the interrogation, both Riley and Austin told their stories. Austin claimed he acted out of fear, that Michael's violent outburst forced his hand. Riley, however, painted herself as a victim caught in the crossfire of two men fighting for her affection. But detectives noticed something odd. Her demeanor remained calm, even when recounting the exact moment Michael was shot. There were no tears, no panic, just matter-of-fact storytelling that didn't quite match the horror of what had happened. If you were to hear her speak, you might think she was describing a bad date, not the violent death of a man she'd called her boyfriend just days earlier. Then came the surveillance footage. It captured moments leading up to the fatal shot. Riley chasing Michael, Austin confronting him. The subtle but crucial seconds where everything changed. And then, the flash of a muzzle.
Dude, I mean, what do you do? What do you do when the guy's eyes bulging out of his head and there's brain laying out?
I don't have any, like,
Yeah, I don't know what to do with him, man. It's to the head and he's bleeding out, man. There's nothing I can do. He's got blood everywhere, man. He can't hear.
This video dives deep into part 1 of the interrogation that followed, where police pressed both Austin and Riley for answers. Where truths were bent, motives questioned, and cracks in the facade began to show. It's an emotional roller coaster of confession, deflection, and silent stares that say more than words ever could. But this is just the beginning. As you'll soon discover, nothing is what it seems. And when love turns deadly, the truth dies with it, unless someone talks. In a quiet corner of Monroe County, Michigan, the early hours of May 8, 2021, began like any other, until they didn't. By sunrise, an entire community would be rattled by a gruesome discovery in the middle of a neighborhood street. A young man, 26-year-old Michael Tripp, lay dying from a gunshot wound to the head. The blood was still fresh. The fear was still thick in the air. Neighbors, awakened by sirens and flashing lights, watched in stunned silence as police cordoned off the area, knowing that something terrible had happened, but having no idea just how dark this tragedy truly was.
Clear, we did right on the
shot, ran up and the windows busted out right there. The glass was flying through the living room. And I didn't run outside when all this happened. I'm not a confrontational person and shit. So when this happened, I stayed inside with the dog and shit.
Who was all in the house?
It was just Riley and Austin.
Okay, I don't know.
Michael Tripp?
I don't know.
Well, Austin was with Riley.
Okay.
And she cheated on him with Michael. And then they started, together, and
Your sister and Michael?
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that's why this happened.
So is this like a ongoing thing that happened recently with her cheating and this baby mama drama?
It just happened.
Okay. So Mr. Green and what's this guy's Michael Tripp?
Yeah, Michael Tripp.
Okay. So they got some bad blood there, obviously.
Yeah. He was staying in his house rent-free and girl behind his back.
At first glance, it seemed like an open and shut case. There was a shooter, a motive, and witnesses. Austin Green, who remained at the scene, didn't run. He didn't resist arrest. Instead, he waited, pacing and sobbing, his hands raised as police approached. According to initial reports, he had acted in self-defense. But as the minutes passed and officers began interviewing him and his girlfriend, Riley Young, an unsettling realization began to surface. This wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. It was the result of weeks, perhaps months, of tangled emotions, broken loyalties, and psychological unraveling. Michael Tripp wasn't just any man. He was Austin's best friend, or at least he had been. That friendship began to fall apart when Riley, the mother of Austin's children, abruptly left him and started a new relationship with Michael. What followed was an emotional spiral that saw jealousy harden into resentment and love curdle into something dangerously close to hatred. Within 2 short weeks, Riley had gone from committed partner to ex-girlfriend, from nurturing mother to a woman caught between 2 men, both vying for control, affection, or maybe just closure. But Riley wasn't merely a pawn in this story. Some would say she was the queen. As detectives dug deeper, they learned that Riley had been the connecting thread between Austin and Michael, even long before the fatal night. She had history with both men. With Austin, she shared children, a home, and a turbulent past. With Michael, she shared a newly ignited romance, one that seemed to bloom too quickly and too fiercely for comfort. But what truly raised eyebrows was her behavior in the hours leading up to the murder, and especially after it. When interviewed, Riley appeared composed, even clinical. She answered questions as if recounting an inconvenience, not a traumatic loss. No tears, no panic, just cold recollection. Meanwhile, Austin's emotional state was unraveling in real time. He told police he didn't mean for any of this to happen, that Michael had shown up at his home in a rage, smashed his front window, and threatened to set his trailer on fire, with his children inside, that he'd begged Michael to leave, to de-escalate, to stop. But Michael wouldn't, and when he allegedly hit Riley, then Austin, that's when Austin pulled the trigger. That's when everything stopped. But what if Michael didn't come looking for a fight? What if he came because Riley told him to? What if this was less about a crime of passion and more about a carefully staged confrontation? Police began to suspect just that, and their suspicions grew stronger with every frame of surveillance footage they reviewed, with every text message they recovered from Riley's phone. It became increasingly clear that someone wasn't telling the whole truth. In fact, someone might have planned the whole thing. Now imagine being in that interrogation room. On one side of the table, a young father sobbing into his hands, confessing to a killing he claims he didn't want to commit. On the other, a calm, calculating partner, recounting the night in a tone almost too calm. Between them lies the truth, but it's hidden beneath layers of manipulation, emotion, and silence. This is the story of what happens when a love triangle becomes a ticking time bomb, when heartbreak morphs into obsession, and when 3 lives crash together with irreversible consequences. It begins with a gunshot, but where it ends, that's what we're here to uncover. The night everything unraveled began with a knock, or more accurately, a crash. At approximately 2:30 a.m., while Austin Green sat in his trailer eating a late-night meal, a sudden shattering of glass interrupted the quiet. Michael Tripp had arrived. Not with peace, not with closure, but with chaos. Michael, by then desperate and emotionally spiraling, had come to confront Riley, to confront Austin, or maybe just to confront the pain of rejection. According to Austin's testimony, he was sitting on the couch with Riley and a friend, Brian, when Michael smashed in the front window with either his fist or an object. No one could say for sure, but what followed was anything but ambiguous.
Austin's.
Who's at Austin's?
Me, Austin, Brian, and my dog. So I was sitting on the love seat with Austin, and he was eating Taco Bell. I was talking to him. Brian was sitting on the big couch, and all of a sudden all you hear is crash. All of my front window got busted, and he's like, "What the f*** are you doing here?"
Michael says that?
Yeah.
So you hear a crash?
Yeah, I hear the window get broken, and we all jump because who's breaking windows at 2:30 in the morning?
Michael, standing outside the broken glass, screamed Riley's name. He hurled accusations. He demanded explanations. He threatened to set the trailer ablaze. Inside were Austin's children, though thankfully not that night. His threats were loud, vivid, and repeated. But most of all, they were terrifying. Austin's first instinct, he says, was to grab his gun, not to shoot, not to intimidate, but to protect.
And said the first thing you did was grab your gun?
Yes.
Okay. What type of gun was it?
It's a Glock 19 Gen 3.
Okay.
30-round clip. It's legal. It's all in my name.
Okay. Where was that at inside the trailer?
It was sitting on my little TV table right next to my couch.
Okay.
The Glock 19 he retrieved was legal, registered in his name, and always kept within reach. This was Monroe, after all, a town where many believed in the right to defend themselves, and Austin was no different. He had bought the weapon not to kill, but to feel safe in a neighborhood that didn't always feel like home. He stepped outside and faced his best friend, now an unrecognizable heartbreak. Austin begged him to leave. Riley begged him to leave. Even Brian asked Michael to walk away, but Michael stayed.
You're not in trouble, right? Okay. We just got a lot of stuff we got to do right now, so...
I don't even know what happened, man. He came and busted the window out, and then Riley, it's a long story, like, Riley and that guy were, like, messing around and stuff, but this is the father of her children's house. She's only been gone from here for not even 2 weeks. So she came back, she wanted to come home, and dude ran up and punched the window out. So she came out here to come talk to him, and then Austin walked out to make sure she was okay, and I guess dude, like, hit Riley or something. The girl, I guess dude hit Riley, and then all I heard was...
He wasn't holding a weapon, but in that moment, his rage was enough to ignite a fire. According to multiple accounts, he dared Austin to shoot. He screamed, "Put your gun down and fight me!" He spat venom about taking Riley back. He told Austin to kill him, over and over again, and then he walked away, only to be chased by Riley. That's when everything crossed the line. Surveillance footage from a nearby trailer captured the moments that followed. Riley running after Michael, Austin gun in hand, not far behind. A scuffle, raised voices, a brief, violent struggle, and then a single gunshot. Michael fell. It's the details here that changed everything. Riley would later tell police that Michael had grabbed her, tried to pull her hoodie, threatened her. Austin said he watched his friend hit Riley, then him, before instinct took over.
He grabbed onto my hoodie, and I was like, "Let the f go with me," and I got loud.
Did you only grab your hoodie once?
He grabbed my hoodie twice, like once while I was walking, and I just like jerked away from him and kept walking, and then he did it again. So Austin grabbed him when he saw him hit me, and he hit Austin in the mouth, and then I turned my head, and then I just kind of heard the gunshot.
But the camera, impartial and cold, only captured the flash, the moment that cannot be taken back. And what of Riley's actions? Why had she chased Michael down the street when she had every opportunity to stay inside? Why confront the man she claimed to fear? Detectives would later question her motivations. Her behavior during interrogation was unnerving, calm, composed, too clean. Austin, by contrast, unraveled. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, he called 911. When no one answered, he called his mother. He left the gun on the porch, hands raised high when officers arrived. His voice trembled. His words spilled out in a blur. "I told him to stop. I told him to leave. He hit me. He hit her. I didn't want to do it." But intention is one thing. Action is another. What began as a desperate confrontation between broken lovers had ended in irreversible tragedy. A man was dead, a father was in custody, and a woman stood between two versions of the same story. The police secured the scene, they collected the shell casing, they retrieved the surveillance footage, and they placed both Riley and Austin in separate interrogation rooms. Rooms where time would stretch, emotions would bend, and the truth would start to seep through the cracks. As the clock ticked past dawn, one thing was certain. This was not a random act. It was the inevitable climax of a relationship built on lies, possessiveness, and perhaps something far darker. Detectives weren't just dealing with a shooting. They were unraveling a psychological puzzle, a test of credibility, a dance between fact and fiction, one that would pit loyalty against law and love against truth. What really happened in those final seconds before the shot? Why didn't anyone walk away before it was too late? Was this a spontaneous act of fear or a premeditated execution disguised as self-defense? The answers, they hoped, would emerge in the interrogation room. The courtroom was packed, not with strangers, but with people who knew the victim, the defendant, and the woman at the center of it all. Mothers, friends, neighbors. They filled the wooden benches and waited in tense silence as the trial of Austin Green began. On one side sat a man accused of murder. On the other, the empty space once occupied by Michael Tripp. Now a memory wrapped in grief. At the heart of the case was a single question. Was this self-defense or something far more sinister? The prosecution didn't hesitate. They painted a picture of Austin as a man boiling with jealousy and betrayal. He wasn't just defending his home, they argued. He was avenging his pride. They pointed to his possession of multiple firearms, the preemptive decision to grab a gun, and most damningly, the surveillance footage that captured the final chase. He pursued the victim, the prosecutor said, and then he pulled the trigger. This was not defense. This was retaliation. But the defense countered with a gripping emotional plea. They reminded the jury that Michael had broken a window, threatened to kill Austin and his children, and physically assaulted both Austin and Riley. The defense team leaned heavily on Austin's call to 911, his immediate surrender, and his lack of criminal history. This is not the face of a murderer, his attorney argued. This is a man who was pushed beyond his limits. He feared for his life. He feared for his family. As expected, Riley Young took the stand, and when she did, the tension in the room was palpable. Her testimony was methodical, controlled. She described Michael's obsession, his violent temper, and the fear she felt that night. She insisted Austin didn't want to fire his weapon. She claimed she had chased Michael only to protect her children and de-escalate the situation. But the prosecution saw something else in her calm demeanor: manipulation. They reminded the jury that Riley had moved on quickly from Austin to Michael, that she had sent messages to both men in the hours before the shooting, fanning emotional flames, that she had been the one to escalate the situation by leaving the house, chasing after Michael, and drawing Austin into a fatal confrontation. Was she a victim or a trigger? The jury was left with a tangled narrative. On one hand, a distraught father who claimed he only acted out of fear. On the other, a man who pursued his victim with a loaded weapon and threading it all together. A woman whose presence and decisions shaped the entire tragedy. Deliberations took days. Emotions ran high. Families sobbed in the hallways. The community remained divided. Was Austin a protector or a killer? In the end, the jury delivered a verdict that stunned everyone. Guilty, but not of murder. The charge was reduced to manslaughter, with the court acknowledging the complexity of the situation and the presence of mitigating factors. The judge sentenced Austin to 12 years in prison, with eligibility for parole in 7. Riley Young walked out of the courtroom that day a free woman, but not without scrutiny. Though she wasn't charged, whispers followed her wherever she went. The court may have cleared her of legal guilt, but in the court of public opinion, her role in Michael Tripp's death was far from forgotten. The trial may have ended, but the questions didn't. The dust settled, the cameras left, but the consequences of that night rippled through Monroe like a stone dropped into still water. For Michael Tripp's family, there was no justice that could bring back their son. He was 26 years old, a friend, a brother, a young man whose final moments were spent pleading or provoking, or perhaps both. His mother kept his photos up in the window long after the trial, hoping that time would not erase memory. Austin Green, now inmate 407631, entered the Michigan correctional system as a man broken. In his first year behind bars, he reportedly struggled with depression, suffered panic attacks, and requested to be placed on watch. The weight of what he'd done, or what he'd failed to prevent, hung around his neck like an anchor. He wrote frequent letters to his children, none to Riley. Back home, Riley Young's life took a turn she hadn't expected. Though legally untouched, she was ostracized by many in her community. Employers were hesitant to hire her. Neighbors avoided her. Her social media accounts were flooded with accusations, taunts, even death threats. She eventually moved out of Monroe, hoping to start fresh. But reputations like hers don't vanish. They follow like shadows. The case also sparked deeper conversations throughout the town. Conversations about domestic violence, about self-defense laws, about emotional manipulation. Families argued over dinner tables. Churches held open forums. Local politicians debated firearm legislation and mental health support. Meanwhile, the truth remained elusive. To this day, people ask, did Riley know what would happen that night? Did Austin truly fear for his life? Or did rage consume him? And perhaps most importantly, did Michael Tripp deserve to die? 5 years later, a local documentary filmmaker released a short feature titled "When Love Kills the Tripp Triangle." It pieced together 911 calls, interviews, court records, and community reactions. The video went viral, reigniting debates, reopening wounds, and once again casting Riley and Austin into the public eye. Riley, in a rare interview, said only this: "We were all broken. I wish I could change what happened, but I can't, and I have to live with that." Austin, speaking through his attorney, maintained, "I did what I had to do. I wish I didn't, but I had no choice." And maybe that's the most haunting part of this entire tragedy. Not the gunshot, not the verdict, not even the lies, but the gray. That hazy, uncomfortable place between guilt and innocence, between hero and villain, between love and destruction. In the end, 3 lives collided under the weight of heartbreak, betrayal, and fear. One was lost forever, one was locked away, and one walked free, haunted by a silence louder than any sentence a court could deliver. In stories like these, there are no winners, only survivors. What began as a complicated love triangle spiraled into a tragedy fueled by emotion, desperation, and broken communication. The death of Michael Tripp didn't just mark the loss of a life, it marked the unraveling of trust, the destruction of relationships, and the haunting reminder that love, when distorted by manipulation and fear, can become lethal. For the investigators, this was one of the most complex cases they'd ever faced. Not because of the physical evidence, but because of the psychology, the blurred lines between victim and perpetrator, the hidden intentions behind every word spoken, the subtle manipulations that led 3 people to the brink and 1 over the edge. It's easy to judge from the outside, to pick a side, to say who was right, who was wrong, who should have walked away. But when emotions run deep, when betrayal burns, and when fear pulses through every heartbeat, the answers aren't so simple. And sometimes, in the tangle of truth and lies, justice becomes a matter of perspective. Michael Tripp's story doesn't end with the shot that took his life. It lives on in the silence that followed, in the questions that were never fully answered, in the children left behind, in the community left fractured. Let his story be a cautionary tale about unchecked rage, about emotional manipulation, about the cost of not walking away, because sometimes what you think is love is really just the beginning of a tragedy waiting to unfold. If this story gripped you, made you question what you thought you knew about love and loyalty, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We uncover the stories that others won't tell, the ones hiding in the gray. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and stay safe.